Good evening and welcome to the May 6th public hearing of the Windham Southeast School District. We'll be hearing this evening from a number of representatives of Stevens Associates, the school district, and taking questions from the community on the Academy School project. We'll also hear from the principal, and we have a thrilling slideshow, which you'll be watching in just a minute. So I'd like to introduce Corey Frazee from Stevens Associates, who will be your host this evening. And Corey, I've enabled screen share, so if you want to put things up, you are all set. I'm going to stop close my video and continue to let people in. So go ahead, Corey.
Thank you very much, David. I'm Corey Frazee with Stevens and Associates. I'm a civil engineer and the principal for this project. And I'd like to give you a brief overview, introduce the team, and go over a little bit of the history for the Academy School project. Is everyone seeing my screen? Thumbs up, maybe? A couple thumbs up. Thank you very much. Quick outline of the agenda for tonight, and I'll use this to introduce the rest of our team that'll be speaking tonight. I will provide the overview. Kelly Diaz, the principal at Academy School, will provide project objectives related to educational goals. Nadev Malin, the president with Building Green, another local company, will provide an overview of project objectives related to sustainability and energy goals. I just want to pause and thank Nadev for joining the team. The school board suggested getting an energy and sustainability consultant involved a while ago in 2020, and Nadev agreed to join the team. And he's been a great asset with regards to sustainability and energy, but also with regards to helping us facilitate our process and reaching consensus as we move through the design process. Diane Abate, our architect at Stevens and Associates, will go through the scope of work with regards to the renovation, addition, and window replacements. Quick overview to get you oriented with Academy School, off of Route 9 in West Brattleboro, behind the church and near the fire station. This is the school with the white roof, and the proposed addition is off the back of the school where there's existing pavements adjacent to the playground. And I've circled this temporary building, which has been there for many years, which will be removed as part of the project. The project as proposed has three distinct elements or aspects. We refer to it as three projects, although they're all related and part of this one overall project. The most significant, I guess, or the biggest project is the proposed addition, showed here with purple shading, that is off the back of the school. The second element of the project is the renovation of a large interior classroom, referred to as the resource room. And Kelly's going to get into a lot more details about the reason for these two projects. They are very closely related. They're related to special education and support programs for academic support. They replace what goes on in the White House and the current resource room. You'll see that there's a reconfiguring and a renovation in the resource room. And then the third aspect of the project is window replacements or window improvements. There are 14 classrooms that have glass block, and those glass blocks have created some challenges over the years, and that project will provide a benefit to the entire student population. I'm sorry I joined just a little late. And so before we move on, I wanted to make sure that we talk about receiving questions. David or Nadev or Frank, did we address that before I joined?
Just that there would be questions.
Okay.
I would encourage you to, if you'd like, I can make you the host, so you'll see the hands when they come up. I would encourage you to respond to people sort of
Yep.
as the questions come up, rather than waiting till the end, but it's your
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah. What we would prefer is if people could post their questions in the chat, and then if they could be answered through the chat, that'll help move the meeting along. And we
I'm
will
not
try to.
sure, I'm not sure if the chat is working. Let me just
Okay.
see what,
Maybe we can
we
do a
don't
test.
typically have a chat in these meetings. It looks like it is working.
Okay.
Okay, and who would be monitoring that, Corey?
Excuse me, guys, the chat it may be working for you as the host, David, but it's disabled for me.
Okay,
So I
they
think-
typically are disabled for our meetings because public
Gotcha.
meetings are not allowed to have chats.
There you
Okay,
go.
fair enough. So we will pause along the way to receive questions, and somebody on our team will figure that out on the fly. It's a little different with Zoom tonight, so we'll figure out who on the team is most appropriate to answer those questions. The history on the project is that it started 5 years ago. We've been working on this project for 5 years now with Academy School. Started with the previous principal, and we completed a feasibility study in 2019, which looked at the challenges, opportunities, and constraints related to the needs to improve these academic spaces and the learning opportunities for these students. And so we are now into design, and I'll let the rest of the team provide you guys more detail. Kelly, we need to make you the presenter now.
So do you want me to reopen this and take over the sharing, Corey? Is that the plan?
I can go through the slides for you if you'd like to prompt me. If that's distracting to you, then we can make you presenter.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That seems simple. Thanks everybody for taking the time to come out and hear from all of us about this project. It's really exciting to see it coming to fruition after so many years of talking about the possibility. And we're excited to share with you a little bit of perspective from the people who have been working in these spaces at Academy School, some of them for many, many years, some of them for a shorter amount of time. So Corey, if you want to go to the next slide. And I'm sure that this is listed elsewhere, but this is just what I put together. I took this picture yesterday. It was raining at school, and I thought to myself, here's a perfect example of a day when our kids would have to exit the building. I took it right from the doorway of the main building. So if a student was going out to the White House for academic support, they would need to walk through the rain to get to this location to do their coursework. Which is, it's far away from their classrooms, and they would be wet when they got there and cold, and, it can be distracting. But the White House, as you probably know, is about 1,400 square feet. In an average non-COVID world, it serves over 100 students per day for what we call targeted interventions or tier 2 interventions. That means that students have received the universal instruction in the classroom, and they still have some gaps in their learning or some extra skills they need to get. So they would meet in small groups to work on those really specific targeted skills. They likely are on a 504 plan, maybe an educational support team plan, or an IEP. This building, again, in non-COVID times, things are a little different right now, but it houses 7 staff members total, academic support teachers, and also our family engagement and education coordinator. It has a completely open floor plan with dividers, so there's no privacy or quiet space. This has been extremely hard for instruction, and especially for our family engagement and education coordinator. Some people refer to her as a social worker. So she can't meet with anybody privately in there. She can't make a private phone call. She can't talk about any confidential things, and that's pretty much every aspect of her job. So she needs to find a different location when she does any of those tasks. And also, it's not the worst thing in the world, but the proximity to the playground can be a challenge because kids are playing on the blacktop right outside of the White House. So, if kids are doing an assessment or they're trying to have a nice quiet space to work and they hear kids running and laughing and screaming and, it can be distracting. So that's a little bit about that. Corey, if you want to go to the next slide, I just put a couple of pictures of the inside on there. It's hard to really grasp. I wish I could bring you all through the White House in person so you could really feel what it's like. But the picture on the left is sort of like I tried to get a bird's eye view. So it's 4 different sections split into one. And the right picture has one section highlighted, and you can see that it connects to another space. There's a table. And then on the right on the opposite side are 2 other spaces. So it's really open. And when everyone has a group at the same time, it just isn't conducive to anybody being able to do their best work. We often say, you need to talk in your whisper voice, but that's not really real life, and that's not how we want kids to learn and to speak. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the resource room, I stood on the counter yesterday to take this picture, again, trying to capture the bird's eye view for you. So this shows the dividers, and they're about, I don't know, maybe 5 feet tall. So you can really see over them. It's a classroom size. It's actually one of our smaller classrooms, in fact. And I went to 1st and 2nd grade in this very classroom. And now it has been split into 7 different spaces. It houses 7 staff in normal times. We have over 60 students on IEPs in our school, which is about 18% of our population. And they have a really wide variety of learning needs, but every learner, regardless of ability, needs a quiet place to learn and to focus on what they're being taught. And this space, unfortunately, can't provide that despite their best efforts. And this group of people is just phenomenal. They collaborate all the time. They are very kind to each other. But, when you get excited about something that you're teaching, it's hard to whisper, and they shouldn't have to. And with a young student, you might want to sing or play a rhyming game with them. And none of that can really happen in this type of environment. So it's been a challenge, noise-wise and space-wise for them. There's also not much storage. So you can see the shelves are quite packed, and everyone's got their file cabinets packed. But, we want tactile learning. We want manipulatives. We have a squeeze machine that for sensory input. So sometimes kids pop in to use the squeeze machine, and that's exciting. And if you're working on math, you want to watch the kid go through the squeeze machine because that's more fun. So it's distracting, but it's, a lot of learning happens, but it could definitely be improved by more privacy. Next slide, please. So overall, this project will really improve all of the teaching and learning for all of our students and staff members. They'll be able to have IEP meetings, make confidential phone calls. There will be less transition time to and from classrooms. This population of learners, which is often the most marginalized, will be more included. There'll be equity. They don't have to leave the main building to travel to a small space that's loud for their extra work. There'll be storage for intervention materials, and our needs are continuing to grow. Our population has a lot of challenges coming in. We have many, many students coming in next year on IEPs already, coming into kindergarten. So we're already working on how are we going to meet those needs. So seeing that, how are we going to meet the increased demand without the proper learning environment? And this will really help us achieve that. Next slide, please. So I have a few testimonials, and I know, you could all read through them, but they're really powerful. And if it's all right with you, I would love to read them out loud. Is that okay, David?
Yes, it's your meeting, Kelly. It's absolutely fine.
Okay. I know, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of people's time, but it's really powerful. So this one's from Rachel Glickman. She's an academic support teacher for grades 5 and 6. So Rachel says, I work with students who struggle to access the Tier 1 universal curriculum for a variety of reasons: gaps in foundational skills, lack of background knowledge, attendance, attention issues, or other situations that might impact their learning. Groupings are both mixed ability and needs-based. Throughout the school year, I will eventually work with most students in a grade level cohort. So all 3 classes, we have 3 classes at each grade level. The biggest challenge of my current workspace is size and noise distraction. I am currently working in a space that is approximately 130 square feet, and due to space limitations, I have been unable to meet with more than 3 students at a time in the White House. While the Academy staff has been extremely creative and generous about sharing space for larger groups, this has resulted in inconsistency for students who often benefit from predictable routines. The other challenge has been noise, as I share a room only divided by partitions with 2 other academic support teachers, and we are often all 3 working with students simultaneously. Some of our most distractible students are having to work in noisy environments, which can exacerbate attentional issues. The remodeled space would provide more square footage to increase the number of students who may be receiving academic support and ensure a learning environment with fewer distractions. In addition, ASTs, that's academic support teachers, will have a central space to store shared intervention materials and better opportunities to collaborate. And Corey, if you could click to, I think I'll just read one other, if you can keep going, I'll let people read. This one, actually, the next 2 are really powerful. I'd like to share both of them if that's all right. This is Sandra Haskins. She is retiring this year after 22 years at Academy School. She's a special education paraprofessional. So she takes direction from the special educators and she runs small groups all day. And she kind of dictated this to me, and I tried to type it up as best as I could capture it. So the hardest thing about teaching in the resource room is that it's loud and distracting for students. The students need a quiet place to work and decompress, and we aren't always able to provide it. Because my space is backed up to the communal sink, there is always coming and going through my groups. I can only fit 3 kids at my table, which really limits my group size. I've worked for 22 years at Academy School, but have only had an instructional space for about 4 years. For most of my time here, I traveled with a cart and pulled kids out into the hallway or used any available space. This was a big challenge because there wasn't always a predictable space available. Now fire code doesn't allow for tables and chairs in the hallway, which eliminates the potential for any workspace. Another challenge of the resource room is that students who are hard of hearing need voices to be loud instructionally, but I can't raise my voice because it will distract the students working in the other spaces. Similarly, years ago, I used to work with a student with a visual impairment who had a large magnifier, which was stored on the cart. I had to find a place to plug it in the hallway, and the student had an incredibly hard time focusing due to the hallway traffic. So although the space issue's been, going on for a long time, and I think Academy staff have really tried hard to be creative and flexible, there have been staff members working with our most marginalized and our neediest learners who have had to really problem solve and find a space to work every day that might be different. And talking to her about this and kind of the history was just so powerful for me because it's my 5th year at Academy this year, but to hear that history and having gone there as a child and seen special ed through, a child's eyes, and now as I've been a special educator myself and as an administrator, it's just really incredible how hard people have had to work to make the instructional impact for these kids. Next slide, please, Corey. I'm almost done, I promise. So Whitney Lind is an extremely amazing special education teacher, and she writes a lot of the same things that Sandra and Ryan and Rachel talked about. But really the biggest thing for her, and she case manages some students who have really high needs and often is needing to collaborate with outside agencies like HCRS, DCF, therapists, all of which are obviously very confidential. And she can't, she's often running around trying to find a place to have a meeting. And Zoom has actually helped with that a little bit, but also you need to have a private room for Zoom too. You can't have anyone overhearing what you're talking about. So she talks about how she's held IEP meetings outside in order to ensure they're confidential. John and I try to give up our offices whenever needed, but sometimes we have meetings too. So the addition would directly impact her ability to sing and play. She works with kindergarten and first grade. To sing and play with my children without worrying that we are being too loud. It would allow my students to focus rather than being distracted by the other groups in the room. It would allow me to have confidential phone conversations and meetings with parents regarding their children's learning. Frankly, it would allow me to do my job as a special educator. And she wants to make sure that we thank you for your attention also. I think that's it.
Before we go on, Kelly, you touched on people being able to read these on their own. And if, again, forgive me for being a couple minutes late, but Frank, I believe that this slide deck has been uploaded to the school district website so that people can review this information on their own, correct?
That's right. And at the end of this slide, we do have the link as well that will make sure we make easily visible, so folks can take a note of that if they wish.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. So I think that concludes my part, Corey, but thanks for doing the slides, and I'm happy to answer any questions for people if they came up now or if later is more appropriate.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Nadev, how would you like to proceed with your piece? Would you like to take over presenter role or do the same thing?
Yeah, I'd actually prefer to share my own screen so I can use some of the PowerPoint features.
Sounds good.
And yeah, if anyone has questions for Kelly in the meantime, this would be a great time to let us know.
So David, could you please make Nadev the presenter now?
I think I can just do it.
Oh, okay,
I think
great.
he's just allowed us to share our screens, so. Let's
Yes.
see if this works.
And there aren't any questions yet.
Okay. Okay, so are you seeing the slide now? Okay. I'm sorry, it's taken over my screen. I'm not seeing anyone, but I assume you are seeing me. You're
Sorry.
seeing the slide.
Yeah,
okay.
we're seeing your screen, Nadev. Sorry.
Great.
I'll
Okay.
give you a thumbs up.
And I was blind to it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining this and really for inviting me to be part of this amazing team on this really key project. It's not a huge project, but I've really grown to appreciate just how essential and impactful it can be for the school. So I'm really honored to be part of it. And I'm going to share just a few thoughts on how we're thinking about sustainability as it relates to the needs and opportunities on this project. So you've already seen a little bit about the school and the project itself, and you'll be seeing a lot more about that in a minute. But the basic thinking that we're applying is there's some really fundamental needs that this project is here to address. Of course, there's the space needs you've just been hearing about. We need to have a structure that fundamentally won't fall down, will keep out the weather, and it all needs to be done on a reasonable budget, right? These are just like the basics that any project starts with. But the key point in my mind that I've come to realize is this isn't for the school. This is for the students, as you've just been hearing about. And these kids, they need more than just any old space and a structure that'll keep the weather out to really be able to learn well, right? They need a space where they can really focus and learn, where they can feel good, where they can just thrive as people and grow into the amazing young adults and eventually adults they can become. And so what does it take to make that kind of space for students? There's a number of things that we've learned over the years that are particularly critical to schools. One, of course, as Kelly was just talking about, is good acoustics. You can't learn if you can't hear the teacher. Lighting is really critical. Preferably daylight is just much healthier and better, but the daylight has to be well controlled so students aren't getting glare or sun directly in their eyes. So good daylighting is really key to a good learning environment. Of course, good air quality, and we're much more tuned into this now with COVID, even than we were in the past. But good air quality is so they don't get sick themselves, so they won't make each other sick. And there's ventilation and healthy materials are all part of making that happen. So we want to really pay attention to the types of materials we bring into a school and make sure we're not introducing hazardous or toxic ingredients in the materials themselves. The space should be comfortable, right? If you're too hot or too cold, it's really hard to focus on learning. And we know, we've heard with the old windows in some of these classrooms, they can get pretty uncomfortable sometime. So that's really key. And then, of course, tied to the budget and the financial constraints, we want to make sure it's energy efficient so that it's not going to be expensive to heat or cool in the future. And of course, for sustainability reasons as well. And so all of these are key to just making it a great environment for the students, and health and well-being in a building is a key part of sustainability. But they're not the only audience. This school is not just for the kids because it doesn't just affect them. It also has an impact on the community as a whole and the region and frankly, the world. Thoreau once said, "What's the use of a house if you don't have a tolerable planet to put it on?" And I've always kind of thought of that as a good mantra for why it's so important for us to pay attention to not just the quality of a space when we build, but also the impact of that building on the larger environment. So we're looking at making it, energy efficient in a way that's also climate smart. And so by that, we mean paying attention to the carbon greenhouse gas emissions associated with how we heat and cool a building. Of course, there's opportunities to protect local ecosystems in terms of best practices for managing stormwater, looking into things like bird-safe glass to prevent birds from killing themselves on the windows, frankly, how we do erosion control during construction, how we develop the site in a way that's good for the environment. And then good building materials are not just healthy, again, for the occupants, but they're also low impact in terms of where they come from, in terms of the carbon footprint that goes into making them, and making sure the materials are harvested or mined in a way that protects the habitat and biodiversity around the space. So all of that is part of the equation. And then, of course, water conservation is important too. So paying attention to water saving fixtures. I'm just giving you a quick snapshot of the breadth of the issues that we are really attending to in this project as part of this sustainability thinking, sustainability lens. And so our process through all of this has been with some good input from the school board. We got some great specialty consultants on board that know a lot about how to do all these things. We had the administration involved, and we went through this series of steps, right? We clarified the goals as it relates to the project as a whole in terms of functional performance, but also sustainability. We then generated a long list of possible strategies, how we could achieve those goals. We went through a few different workshops where we prioritized and vetted the different strategies and looked at what makes sense. Some of the consultants did some pretty detailed technical analyses on the energy picture, on the lighting, to see what makes the most sense for the project. And then we came together and really made the key decisions about what's going to make the most sense in terms of the overall form and the location of the addition, and some of the bigger decisions around the project. And all of that is also really to set the stage to continue to guide choices in terms of building materials and some of the details as we go into the more detailed design phase. So that's the picture in terms of how we've been working on the sustainability aspects of this project, from my perspective at least. It's been really great working with this team on it, and I look forward to hopefully being able to continue and to develop and that work and have a great project that can be also kind of a good precursor and example for future projects in the district and in the community. So I'm happy to take any questions about any of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ricky.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the attention to detail that's given in this reconstruction. And I have a couple of questions. One about what is the current water filtration and testing process for the people on site, and what will it be changed to?
You're asking about the drinking water. How is it
How
filtered
is
and
it
treated?
tested and filtered?
I do not know that. Do we have Matt Hill with us by any chance? Matt is head of facilities at Academy School. Otherwise, we may have to take that question and respond to it later.
Yeah,
Ryan,
and
you don't happen to know, do you?
I can also make a brief comment on that, and that is because it is a municipal water system, from as part of the town of Brattleboro. It's really the town's responsibility to assure that the municipal system is, safe and meets the standards. And then when it comes to the individual, dispensing units within the school, it is obviously the school's responsibility to make sure that those water coolers are current and meet standards. So we could give you some more detail on some of the particulars around the way in which the town of Brattleboro communicates with the school in terms of assuring that the water quality is sufficient. But that's a general answer to your question.
Yeah, I would like to know specifically when the last time a state certified lab test was done and what the results were, and if there is an expected annual testing.
We can get back to you on that. Thank you.
Another question I have is about how I struggle with supporting schools that I'm unfamiliar with what the curriculum is. And so I was wondering if there is any education about the Indigenous history to students here too.
Yeah, I mean, it varies by grade level and certainly by theme and by our standards. We do have social studies standards within our district now that we all follow. So each grade level has specific units of study that they do. But it's certainly part, I know I actually taught third grade at Academy before I became an administrator, and it's a big part of the third grade curriculum. And I believe the upper grades work with it as well.
Like, is there sensitivity to making sure to not call the Native people Indians in the school?
Yes, very much so.
And are they taught about how the Odanak and the Wallanock are the native tribes to this area, and how the 4 state recognized tribes are actually white people with fraud genealogy reports?
I don't know how in-depth they go with that, but they definitely study several different tribes, and a big part of that is the groups that were native to this area.
Does the school support reparations in any way?
That's not something that we've come across as, I guess a we've never been approached about that. I don't think we would ever be against that. I think it would be something that we would want to engage the community as part of.
Is that part of a future agenda plan? Is there any commitment towards supporting reparations?
No, I could bring it up at our leadership council meeting though. I think that would be an interesting topic for the district to talk about.
Right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We had
Yeah.
another question from Tom. I just want to make sure that people understand Diane is going to give an architectural overview of the project. So if questions are related to architectural or design elements, we should hold those questions until after Diane presents. Tom, your question?
Yes, thank you for stating that. I think my questions are on point, but feel free to delay them if they're not. I have one question for each of for Kelly and for Nadav. I'm wondering with the that White House space, which is used for particular, peoples and services, if it could be more appropriate or it could work better if there was different sort of uses that were designated for that area.
I can
And I'll just
speak, I can
keep it
speak
general.
briefly to that. As an engineer, I was involved in bringing that temporary building to Academy School close to 10 years ago. And the building was used at the time, and there's been a lot of money that's been put into that building. So we have discussed other uses for it. But at this point, it is in such disrepair and would the cost to improve it to the point where it could continue to be used for any kind of inhabitant purpose is not appropriate or cost effective.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I didn't know if, I forget some of the terms of the services and the classes or one-on-one that was provided, but I was just thinking maybe, classes or services that weren't so sensitive to disruption and stuff could maybe be located there and delay the need to change it. But I think you answered that, but I was just clarifying in case you don't think you did.
That was a
My
good
other-
question. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Tom. I just wanted to answer that from an instructional perspective too, that I think it used to be used as like a math lab or like a computer lab area years ago. And now we actually do have a small classroom running in it just because of COVID. To keep class size down, we needed to open a 20-second classroom instead of our 21, which is okay. But as Corey said, right now it's just appreciated so much that we've dumped so much money into it to repair it over the years that it really wouldn't be worthwhile to continue doing that, no matter what the use is.
I see. Okay. I've maybe a quick question for Nadav. It's about I'm on the planning commission in town, and we've been talking kind of recently about locating well, there's incentives at the state level and that we can actually have a voice in about locating solar panels over like the built environment. And we kind of are, a lot of groups are in agreement that that's the ideal location to put them over the built environment, but it's often cheaper to put them in undeveloped, farm and forest. So when a new building is going to be built, that's kind of the best time to design solar panels in instead of later down the road retrofitting. So I wonder if that obviously would add to the costs of this, but I wonder if that was looked into and considered.
Ellie, can I
Yeah.
respond to that?
Please. Yeah.
The Academy is not really a good site for solar panels. We looked into that several years ago for putting panels on the roof, and we were discouraged from doing that, which is why we were the first school district, the first municipality in the state actually to sign an agreement to take power from a new solar facility. We kind of paved the way for that process. So we get our solar. We are getting the energy credits from a site in Westminster because that site was not appropriate for putting panels.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the answer. Sorry for not putting my camera on. I'm kind of in a dark space right here, so.
It looks like Brian or whoever's with you, Brian, has a question.
Let me unmute this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Becky and Brian Cleveland.
Great.
We are actually neighbors to Academy. Our property runs the full length of the playground. So we're very interested in what's going to be happening here. One of the questions that, speaking about the environment, the water runoff and everything,
Ecosystem.
the ecosystem is every spring, it floods from the backwoods across the playground onto our facility or our property, because I don't know if the underground culverts are too old or if it's just the debris from the woods. But I'm just wondering, when you're in there building new buildings, what else is going to be disturbed so that it's creating more damage when it comes onto our property?
I can speak to that if the team would like.
Sure.
We have looked at a couple different aspects related to drainage, and we are planning to replace a pipe that is in the area of the addition. So you're probably familiar with what I say is the basketball court,
Yep.
to get you oriented, on the far side of the field from your property and next to the hillside there. And so there is a pipe that goes underneath that area that needs to get replaced because it's where the addition is going to be constructed.
Mhm.
And we will be increasing the size of that pipe and improving the slope of it. It's so that portion of piping under the playground will have better capacity. That we're not currently looking at replacing the pipes under the playground that carry the stream water from the hillside.
Okay. But
The
do they
other,
tie in?
I'm sorry.
Do they all tie into one? Like what you are going to?
Well, there's a lot of piping underneath Academy School. There's piping from the front the front parking lot, which is separate. But the pipes will be upgrading, tie into the piping that goes under the playground for the stream. Yeah. So that will be one improvement as we look towards the future and doing perhaps other improvements to the drainage systems out there. The most important aspect of considering stormwater on the property, it's currently asphalt. And so where we're constructing the addition will not increase any impervious surface or any hardscape. So we won't be changing the drainage patterns. We won't be increasing stormwater runoff due to this addition. And that's really important. And in fact, if we think about the removal of the White House, we will actually be restoring some pervious surface where there's currently the roof of the White House. So I don't anticipate, and this will be part of our town zoning permit that we'll be providing more detail on, but I don't anticipate that there will be any increase in stormwater runoff. In fact, I think it'll be slightly reduced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
You're welcome.
Great. Well, let's move on to Diane.
Yes.
Can I do a screen share? I guess that's probably the easiest.
Diane, I'm also happy to click through the slides if that's easier for you. You let me know.
Might be. I'm just trying to get this larger. How's that? Is that visible or? Yes,
Yes.
architectural project overview is.
You could go into full screen and it would be even bigger, Diane, under view menu. Up at the top under the view menu.
Not seeing it, sorry. I mean, is this visible? I mean, can people see this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so why don't we just go with this? All right, so Diane Abate, I'm the project architect with Stevens and Associates, and I've been working on this project. I started with the feasibility study in 2019. Just to give you a little bit of a project overview of the 3 projects that you've been hearing about, which is the renovation of the special education resource room, the addition, which will be used for academic support, as well as some special education space, and the window replacement project. Now, in terms of project objectives, you've been hearing, I think Kelly went into great detail about the educational needs and deficiencies that these spaces currently have, that there's a great need to address the overcrowded conditions, a need for visual and acoustical separation to improve student focus, and also this sense of wanting to create, foster equality and a sense of belonging to the larger school community, where students are especially the academic support students, are forced to leave the building and travel outside. And you heard with Nadav Melin from Building Greens, the importance of the selection of materials and mechanical systems and the methods of construction to support the environment and improve the health and well-being of occupants, as well as be energy efficient in design and fiscally responsible. So before I even put pencil to paper, I met with all of the academic staff and staff from special education, and sat with them and asked them, what would make your ideal classroom space, and what are the things you're struggling with? And this really is a list of all those things, and we've heard a lot of them already tonight, which is the want for natural light, having good day lighting, being able to control the temperature of the rooms. Like we'll get into the windows, but the existing windows in the original 1950 classroom buildings are very difficult to control. Solar glare and thermal heat loss, and they're difficult to operate. Many of the windows don't open, so they don't get fresh air and ventilation. That's also important for their learning environment. I won't go through every one of these, but again, you can read these if you download. So starting with the existing classroom, the special education resource room, again, Kelly went into this. These were pictures that I took and observations that I made when I was there, and it really is, it's quite a sight to see, how students and staff really operate and function in here. It is quite a challenge. The floor plan of that existing space, and I think Kelly mentioned this too, there's about 7 functions that are happening here, and they can happen simultaneously, and it can get pretty overwhelming in terms of being able to focus. So given that we had this one classroom to work with, it's basically, look, you're not going to fit all these programs in the space. If you want acoustical separation, something's got to give. You cannot get the number of functions in this space. So we took a look at providing 4 separate rooms, which would provide visual and acoustical separation. You would have a sort of a central hallway that would come off of the main corridor, where staff would have some storage space, as well as a sink for hand washing, which was also important for this group to have. We would basically be relocating the door in order to get this sort of central location, so that we could at least subdivide the room into fairly equal spaces to maximize the square footage of the space. So that then takes us over to the academic support. And again, you heard about the modular building and its challenges. And these were, again, images that I took to show that sort of that distance that students must travel and traverse over. And again, it's also the sort of psychological distance too that this creates, you know, that they're not part of the school community as much. So with that, we looked at taking this being a massing model to look at the space needed for academic support as well as some additional space for special education, and said, you know, where does it make sense? What's the best opportunity and place for this building? And really, this became the obvious location for that addition. And this is, again, just a massing diagram to give you a sense of scale and what that addition would look like. As far as layout, again, we've created a series of learning rooms for small groups for academic support, as well as the special education group, which just simply couldn't fit in the renovated classroom. They would also have a bathroom on this end of the building, which would otherwise they would have to travel the entire length of, I think the next bathroom is way back in here, I believe, Kelly, isn't that? Somewhere way down. So you can imagine a kindergarten or first grader having to traverse that hallway. So we've got a bathroom here and a large storage space for academic support and a janitor closet for Matt. That was important to him. And again, just to give a sense of massing and scale of the addition and its relation to the existing school. The other piece of this project is the window replacement. And it's an important project. One of the things we heard over and over with teachers in the classrooms is the issues they were having. I mean, they love these well, wait, let me not get ahead of myself, because this is the scope of the window renovation. These rooms that are highlighted here in pink are the windows that we are looking to replace. They are primarily the original 1950 windows. They're wood frames. They have glass block above and clear glazing below. You can see some of them. The operation it's some hopper operation, and they provide this great daylighting inside, which is quite lovely and works quite well, but has lots of issues in terms of glass block, especially of that era, is not very efficient in terms of controlling solar heat gain, and there is little to no thermal resistance. So when it's cold out, that you're getting no R values on that. And again, this is just an inside shot of those windows and a close-up of some of the condition of those 1950 windows, which those wood frames are now 70 years old and are showing their age. And I know they require a lot of maintenance and upkeep. And again, a lot of the windows are non-operable. So this was actually a big part of our study in terms of the daylighting. And there are a couple of products that we felt would be good candidates for a window replacement. And we are looking at two, a cowl system and a solar area glazing system, which is a sort of a translucent panel you can see here, and this is also a translucent panel. The difference being one is glass and the other is like a poly sandwich. It's a I don't know what the
polycarbonate, I think.
Polycarbonate. There you go. It's a Nadev. Thank you. And the difference being in terms of their diffusion diffusion and our values, they're very similar. I think the glazing performs a little bit better than the cow wall. The difference between the two being that is that one is a little bit more expensive, and then of course that's the one with the better U value, and the cow wall has some maintenance that's required in order to keep the panels from degrading over time. And so we're weighing sort of like the costs between, you pay more upfront and have less maintenance, or you have a little bit of maintenance and you pay less going forward. So but this is just to give you an idea of the sort of level of thought and study that we're doing in terms of making like such a big investment. This, again, just an example of some of the studies where you can see the difference between the glass block, how daylight filters through the classrooms using glass block here on the lower right, where you do see that glare that sort of hits the desks, but you get some good daylighting, versus clear glazing up here on the left, which you have extreme harsh conditions, versus this nice diffused lighting you see here on the bottom left, which you would get with both. This says Solari, but the cow wall actually performs just almost equally in terms of diffusing that light and providing good daylighting, as well as improving the U values of that wall. So the other piece of this in terms of improving the quality of the classroom learning spaces is on the mechanical end. And what we're looking at there is to use outside air heat recovery systems for the addition, so that you have this constant flow of fresh air that's constantly flowing through the space, as well as a dedicated heat recovery system for the resource room as well. Because now that we've created these individual rooms with partitions that go to the ceiling, you simply can't, you've got to provide heating and cooling and air and fresh air throughout those spaces. You're no longer in these big open classrooms, so you really have to provide a different system to take care, to make those rooms comfortable and to make that air quality healthy. We would also be using or extending the current pellet hydronic system for heating, and then as a backup system using, since you need to cool those rooms, you would end up with a air source heat pump, and use the existing pellet system, hydraulic system for heating, and you would also have as backup the heat from the heat pump, which is also providing you the air conditioning that you'll need for these small spaces. And I think that's kind of, that's it. That's actually the end of that part of the presentation. If there's questions from anyone, I'm happy to respond.
Diane, thank you so much. I know that was hard to do in that little amount of time, because you've been working on this project for 2 years. So hopefully there's some questions that we can get into a little more detail. Jackie?
Thanks, Corey. And Diane, thank you for that. That was an excellent overview of a whole lot of very critical data. So thank you. And I apologize, because this is a question I'm now realizing I've had probably 7 opportunities to ask before right now, but I honestly just didn't think of it until right now. Given the age of the windows, I'm just wondering if the current windows meet the current standards for egress, or maybe they don't need to because of the layout of the classrooms, but I wondered about that. Thanks.
Yeah, so the new windows will definitely need will need that egress, and I don't believe the current ones meet that now. It is one of those things I'm For sure, any new window going in, we would have to provide that because the rooms are over 250 square feet. We don't need that for the addition because the rooms are under 250, but definitely for the classrooms, you will need that egress window. So any new window going in, yes, that would be provided.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Speak to that too. Some of the current classrooms that have those windows open into the courtyard. And so those classrooms do have one window that pushes out as a means of egress where they would get into the courtyard and then they can exit via the courtyard back through the building toward the back playground, which isn't ideal, but they would be able to get out. And some classrooms have a door right to the outside.
That's right. Right.
Yep.
Thank you. And I think I failed to mention that Frank Rucker, business administrator and financial for the school district, is going to go over the proposed loan, which is the article for May 11th. So we will be discussing the financing for this project. And there's also a schedule slide that I can review quickly. So we've got schedule and financing that we still want to present on.
All right, so I'm going to stop share.
Yeah, that's fine.
One question?
Yeah, oh, of course, Kelly.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to skip you. Yes, Kelly,
Oh,
please.
no, that's fine. So it sounds to me, this is a big project with sounds like lots of moving pieces. And so confirm, what I'm understanding is you are replacing the glass block windows, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so my question goes to, they have some history in the building and understanding that sometimes when construction happens, things get destroyed. Are those like recyclable? Is there any possibility that some sort of art project can be used, they could be used for that? Or are they just going to be a total loss?
So that is something that we've sort of talked about as a group, and I would love to say that we would love to find a creative way or reuse the block in some way. There will be a lot of it, and I definitely would not want to see it go to waste. I think there's a great opportunity for that to get reused in some useful way. And I don't know, Nadev, that might be, I know that's a little bit of your area too. I know he's had some creative ideas, and like even thinking about using them as partitions, within the new construction.
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm glad you
Yeah.
pointed that out, Kelly. It was one of the things that definitely occurred to us, and we've had long conversations about how do we make the best use of that material and all kinds of ways we could do it. And I think there's still some good opportunities to use at least some of it in the projects that'll be happening at the school, but there probably also will be some that'll need a new home. And I would definitely want to make sure that when we take it out, we do all we can to keep from breaking it so it can get a second life.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Frank, would you like me to do a quick review of the schedule? Diane, why don't you stop sharing your screen?
Yep, I'm gonna stop. Okay.
And I'll pick up sharing.
Yeah, and that would make sense, Corey, if you could review that schedule.
Great. So as I said before, we did a feasibility study in 2019, and we finished that up at the end of 2019. And COVID threw us a curveball on this project. So we did some work through 2020 with the school board. We brought Nadev on board. We adopted sustainability goals as in addition to overall goals for the project. And we have done work in the last 3 months to get to the point where we are confident and design process. We'll finish our construction documents, which will go to a select list of pre-qualified bidders, and we would get pricing or bids from the contractors in the month of August, and we would start construction in September. I'm getting feedback from someone. If you're not speaking, could you please mute? Thank you. So this is a pretty detailed project overview that we shared with the school board about a month ago. And again, it's one of your slides. I'm not going to go through them, but we are in the process of pre-qualifying bidders. And again, we would finish our design over the next 3 months, and it would be bid out in August, and construction would start in September. We expect it to be a 6 to 8 month construction project. And Frank, I'll go ahead and just flip to the next slide if you'd like, if you want to speak to the financing piece. Does that make sense?
Sure. Okay, so financing for the project is pretty straightforward. The conventional options are either a municipal loan through a local bank, or for a larger project, it's more common to do a bond vote. We're proposing a municipal loan with a 5-year term, primarily because this is a smaller project and the cash flows are not significant relative to the size of the Windham Southeast School District budget. So here's a proposed amortization schedule for 1.5 million. You've heard the project cost is estimated to be 2 million. We are anticipating that we will secure some federal funding for this project, and that's the reason for reducing the sample borrowing amount by 500,000. If we're not successful with securing funds, grant funds, then we do have, as part of the long-term capital plan at the Windham Southeast School District, a reserve, and we would utilize that reserve and apply it against the cost of the project. So when we run the numbers through the state of Vermont's school funding law, and we translate that into a tax rate, if we have an average approximately $320,000 annual debt service, when you look at the schedule between interest and principal, that translates into about a penny on the tax rate, 1.2 cents on the tax rate. And moving the decimals over, if you deal with school homestead property tax rates, that's per $100 of tax assessed value. Translate that 1.2 translates into $12 annually on a $100,000 tax assessed home. So you can multiply that $12 by any multiple of a tax assessment for property, and that's your estimated annual impact. As I say, we hope to reduce that even further with grants. We're being very assertive with all of the grant applications that are available through the federal legislation that is assisting schools to recover and to make building improvements. So we're confident that it's going to be in this ballpark. So that's that, and this is the article to be voted on May 11, which essentially authorizes the board to borrow the funds. So that's by an Australian ballot format in each of the 4 town voting places as indicated on the warning. So that's also on the website. Corey, we added the link on this PowerPoint. I know we've done a couple of versions. Do you have another page to this? And if, yeah, it doesn't look like you had the latest version. So if you stop share, I'll just share the current version that's on the website so folks can take a glance at it. Here is the the document that's on the website. This is part of that 47-page PowerPoint that you just reviewed from our great team. And here's the link to the supervisor union website. So if you went to WSESU.org, and then we put right up front in the first thing you see a list of school boards and so on, and there's also this building improvements link that you can click on, and you will see this resource along with the warning and other information. And just I'm leaving it there for a moment, but just so you have a sense of that, I'll click on that as well. Here it is. This is the website I'm referring to, and this is where you would see the various navigation links. And here we are with this building improvements. That's where all of this information is. Here's the PowerPoint. Here's the warning article, the sample ballot, and other items that we've referred to this evening. Presentation this evening, and let's see. I'll stop to. I don't see any questions. Hands. One from Lynn. Lynn, go ahead.
Yes, maybe I missed this, but will these new windows reduce the energy bill? And if so, approximately how much?
Yes, we do expect them to reduce our energy bills. There's been a preliminary analysis of they call it the U value, kind of the opposite of the R value. And we have a target of a 15% reduction in energy, but I would defer to either Nadev or maybe Diane to see if we have anything more specific that we could share.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to that, Lynn. I'm glad you asked. One of the interesting things that we discovered in doing the more detailed analysis on this is that, we were talking about, do we invest more in upgrading the energy efficiency of the addition versus investing more in the windows? And what we found really is that Vermont energy codes have gotten pretty tight, and especially with the 2020, there's a new version came out. So the addition, just to meet code, is going to be quite energy efficient, and we can improve on that a little bit. But where the impact, the energy savings from upgrading the windows, because where we're starting from is so poor in terms of thermal performance, it just really dwarfs the opportunity with the addition. In fact, if you just take the energy savings from replacing the windows on a single classroom, there'll probably be about as much energy impact for heating and cooling as heating and cooling the entire addition. So it really is a huge opportunity to improve the thermal efficiency of the whole school, replacing all those windows. And that's going to really help with the performance of the boilers and the pellet system as well, because they're working really hard. to keep the school comfortable in the winter. And so improving that is going to reduce the bills, improve the comfort dramatically, and make the whole system easier to maintain and run for the facility manager as well.
Any other questions from folks?
Jackie.
Mhm.
Thanks so much. I don't have a question. I do have something like a statement I'd like to make about this, and I normally speak off the cuff, but I did, write this out to keep myself from getting very emotional. Would anybody mind? It will be somewhat brief. Okay. So I just wanted to say this publicly. I ran for a seat on the school board to support all of our students, and after a year of COVID, I'm just finding it so very uplifting to be a part of this project. It feels like I'm finally being given the opportunity to participate in the school board as I originally intended to, and it feels less like we're in total crisis mode. So I wanted to acknowledge that positive change. And with regard to the current structure at the Academy School, I want to say that it's very easy for everyone to talk about the accommodations that we may make for people who are differently abled, but we rarely acknowledge the accommodations that people who are differently abled are required to make all day, every day, to exist in a world which is not built for them. And creating a safe, inclusive, visually, spatially, audibly, and aesthetically appropriate space for our students and faculty at Academy School is such a wonderful opportunity for us as a district, and would certainly, in my own opinion, set a stellar example of the least restrictive environment to which all of our students enrolled in special education are entitled. And the window replacement project should be an enormous upgrade for all of our students' learning environments. And I would also mention that the focus that this project has placed on sustainability is so critical to the future of our community. And I'm thankful to Stevens and Associates and Building Read for making this happen for us in a manner that makes financial sense. I would hope that our community agrees, and I'm asking as a board member and as a parent of a differently abled child for voters to support this project. Thanks so much.
Jackie, thank you. You stole my thunder and my closing thoughts, but you couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it any better. So, folks, the vote is on May 11th, and hopefully you've received a postcard if you'd like an absentee ballot. My last question is to Frank or David, the polling places, and I should know this, but where are the polling places at Town Hall in each of the 4 towns?
They are town halls in each of the 4 towns, and they're open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Excuse me, Putney's is at the fire station.
David,
Thank you, Liz.
Brattleboro's polling station is at the Career Center.
And I was just going to pull up
You all are-
warning. Here's the warning article, and again, it's right in that same link. So here's all of the places. As I think someone just reminded us, in Brattleboro, it's the Windham Regional Career Center. It's where for folks that are familiar with that facility, that's where the Brattleboro Savings and Loan branch was, right on campus on Atwood Street. And then here you are in Gomerston at the town office and Guilford town office. Liz, I think you were saying the fire station in Putney. And
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and so there you go. There's the warning. And that's, as I said, on the website as well. And postcards did go out with all that information to all residents about a week ago.
Looks like we have a question from Ricky.
Yeah, I did receive the postcard, and it did not have the physical location listed on it. And on the municipal website calendar, there was the physical site listed for Brattleboro of where to go vote, but it was only listed as a special meeting. So I would appreciate more transparency in the warning for people to be educated and informed with everything they need to know about this $2 million ordeal. And I don't think that just depending on people having access to internet and with the privilege to access links is really effective towards public engagement. But I really wish that, again, that the postcards had physical addresses located on it. And I personally too am going to abstain from voting until I get more clarification on the water testing and filtration process at the school. Thank you.
So David, maybe we might turn it over to you to close the meeting, or maybe address any other questions. I don't see any other questions in the participant board.
I don't either. And I see that Ann Beekman is here, who has the traditional function of moving that we adjourn. So Ann, would you please?
Mr. Chair, there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Sean. Moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please unmute, board members, and indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much for the terrific presentation. It was well prepared and really comprehensive. So great, and I hope that lots of people get out and vote. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.